Is time travel more than just an impossible dream? Are there people who have already succeeded in breaking the fabric of space and time? A few years ago, a mysterious man appeared in the Ukraine who claimed to have made the impossible possible. He had traveled from a bygone era into the future. But that's not all. The stranger also presented a series of photos and documents to back up his almost unbelievable story. But how could this be? Did the stranger really manage to unhinge the laws of time and immerse himself in a strange era? How should we evaluate the evidence presented? And above all, what shocking events should we prepare ourselves for in the future? Everyone has their own style of dress, and yet the inhabitants of Kiev in 2006 could not help but recognize that this stranger had taken his retro look very seriously. The man who had appeared out of nowhere was not only dressed in a strangely old-fashioned way, he was also carrying a camera that was no less out of date. In addition to his strange appearance, the stranger also made an extremely confused impression. He seemed completely disoriented and approached the police to ask for directions, but he wanted to go to a street that hadn't existed for years. The officers asked the man to identify himself and couldn't believe their eyes when he presented a Soviet document from the 1950s. The ID card identified the stranger as Sergei Ponomarenko and stated that he had been born in 1932. But Sergei didn't look 74 years old at all. The statement that he was only 25 was more consistent with his appearance. It dawned on the police that they had picked up a prankster, or a man suffering from a mental illness. In order to clarify the background to the confused situation, they took Sergei to the police station for questioning. A photography expert was also called in to develop the long-outdated camera film. But then, things took a turn that absolutely nobody had expected. The finished images showed Kiev as it had looked in the 1950s. Anyone who now believes that Sergei bought the camera and film from an antiques dealer is mistaken, because he was also seen in some of the shots, and he was wearing the same clothes in which he had run into the policeman. Some of the photos showed Sergei together with a young woman he described as his fiancée. And as if all the circumstances weren't crazy enough, the photos also included a snapshot of a flying saucer that Sergei said had flown past one of the buildings. Just when the officers thought it couldn't get any more puzzling, they went through the missing person reports from the past and realized in disbelief that they actually included a certain Sergei Ponomarenko, who had disappeared in 1958. The woman from the pictures could also be traced, and the now 70-year-old confirmed that her fiancé had literally vanished into thin air almost 50 years ago. However, he is said to have reappeared 2 years later just as suddenly as he had disappeared before. In the end, the woman was to add another inexplicable piece to the puzzle. She placed a photo on the table that was supposedly taken from the year 2050. It showed a much older Sergei posing in front of a futuristic-looking Kiev skyline. To top off the crazy time travel story, Sergei is said to have disappeared before he could be interviewed again. Apparently, he somehow managed to leave the locked, guarded room. All he has left behind is a modern myth that divides the rest of the world into two camps: those who see Sergei Ponomarenko as nothing more than an attention-seeking fraud, and those who believe that he has provided proof of the existence of time travel. The skeptics point out that the photos presented are strikingly reminiscent of some shots shown in an episode of the Ukrainian TV show Aliens. But what do you think about the case? Has the mysterious man really traveled through time? Or did he and his accomplice just stage an elaborate story to prank us all and be in the spotlight for a moment? Will AI destroy us all? Well, the short but unpleasant message is, yes, unfortunately it will. Well, that is if we believe the convoluted claims of an anonymous man from Siberia who claims to have witnessed the brutal reign of robots with his own eyes. He claimed to have worked in a physics laboratory where he and another scientist were working on a time machine. The two men tested their creation and moments later found themselves in the year 4040. However, the last 2,000 years had not been kind to humanity. Half of the world's population was dead, wiped out by artificial intelligences. However, the foundation stone for the destruction had been laid much earlier, in the year 2458 to be precise. This was the year in which we humans first came into contact with aliens from another galaxy. The extraterrestrial beings lived much longer than the inhabitants of Earth and could easily live to be 400 years old. However, the exotic visitors still had the consequences of a devastating war in their bones, which had decimated their total number to 200,000. After the galaxy-spanning rendezvous, however, humanity seemed to be heading for a bright future. Medical research made considerable progress, which soon meant that many people were also able to celebrate their 200th birthday. In the year 3213, a monstrous supercomputer that was half the size of Europe and powered artificial intelligence emerged from the cross-species collaboration. But in the end, the inevitable happened. The digital mastermind outperformed its creators and sent the pack of robots into battle against the humans and aliens. The devastating war that broke out as a result raged for 800 years and ended with the victory of the machines. In view of this unpleasant scenario, it is hardly surprising that the nameless time traveler concluded his story with an urgent warning. We must recognize the dangers of artificial intelligence and take them seriously. Otherwise, it is only a matter of time before our timeline is also struck by such a catastrophe. What does it actually feel like to travel through time? Well, if you're thinking of the intro to The Big Bang Theory, in which the most breathtaking developments of the millennia rush past you, you're wrong. Because thanks to Bella, a woman from Albania, we know that time travel is by no means as spectacular as it is presented to us on television. Because while the centuries rush past you, you see nothing but an impenetrable black. In the same breath, very high voltages flow through your body. The selfie she took in the year 3800 proves that Bella's experiences are firsthand. Whether the time traveler knows the story of the man from Siberia is uncertain. What is certain, however, is that Bella paints a no less ominous picture of the future. Because no matter where she looked in the 39th century, she saw debris, dead people, and destroyed robots everywhere. She even claims to have encountered a killing machine at close range. The android was gigantic, and not only could it speak, it also had amazingly lifelike facial expressions. However, it is obvious that not everyone is immediately convinced by Bella's claims. Although she herself said that she had taken several photos in the apocalyptic future, she was only able to present one as supposed proof. There is no question that futuristic-looking buildings can be seen in the background of the photo, and yet at least some residual doubts remain. Because in the midst of the fierce battle for survival between man and machine, Bella has somehow managed to keep her flawless makeup from smudging. This time traveler earned a golden nose and vanished into thin air. 6 HIV patients are now considered cured, and Osama bin Laden was tracked down and shot dead in Pakistan on May 2, 2011. Are you wondering why we are telling you this? Well, quite simply, we could have had both much earlier. But first things first. In March 2003, a certain Andrew Carlson was arrested by the Securities and Exchange Commission. The charge? Illegal insider trading. The suspect had previously successfully traded 125 high-risk shares and turned an investment of $800 into more than $350 million in just 2 weeks. There was only one way for the investigators to explain this extremely skillful stock market trading. The newly minted multimillionaire had used secret insider information to make his profitable trades, and thus broken the law. However, Carlson firmly denied this accusation, and yet made no secret of the fact that he knew exactly which shares would yield the most money. Not, however, because he possessed forbidden background information, but for the simple reason that he was a time traveler from the year 2256. Thanks to his great knowledge advantage, Carlson had nothing else to do but catapult himself into the past and make a fortune on the stock market in 2003. Carlson did not want to reveal where his alleged time machine was located, but he offered the officials a deal that was not worth the money. If the SEC left him alone, he would reveal the whereabouts of Osama bin Laden as well as the cure for HIV. But can you really blame the investigators for simply not believing the fabulous time travel story? Despite all reasonable doubt, puzzlingly, no records could be found to prove Andrew Carlson's existence before 2002. Rumor has it that the millionaire stockbroker was indicted soon after, and mysteriously disappeared shortly before the trial date. Since then, no one has ever heard from him again. But if you press the subscribe button now, we'll hear from you again very soon. Join our community and never miss a new video again.